Majid Rafizadeh is the president of the International American Council on the Middle East and a scholar from. Welcome to our broadcast.
Thank you for having me, Susan.
Majid, we're barely a day into the cessation of hostilities and already.
It seemed to be like an important diplomatic move, but unfortunately, it reflects the fact that the United States and many other countries, they don't have really articulate agenda when it comes to dealing with the Syrian crisis. And the truce also reflects the recent ceasefire doesn't really cover the complexity of the Syrian conflict. That's why it's doomed to fail. The Syrian conflict has several layers. It has domestic conflict, regional one, international one, and then you have those global jihadist or Islamist groups, non-state actors in Syria. So there are four important layers. And the recent truce only covers a couple of major players in this conflict, and it doesn't really include approximately 200 or 300 rebel groups in Syria. It doesn't include the Islamic State. It doesn't include Jabhat al-Nusra, and it doesn't really specify who should not, to whom should not they attack, or whom should they will consider their attacks as self-defense. So there are a lot of really obstacles and shortcomings when it comes to this truce.
How destabilizing can al-Nusra and ISIL actually be in their efforts?
Well, they can, if they launch attacks on an area, they can first expand their territorial gain, and then that will, in the point zero, where everybody is again fighting each other in the name of self-defense. So our militia groups, rebel groups included in this truce, you will have, I think, problems with really maintaining this kind of ceasefire. And I have to mention that even the Russian officials said that this ceasefire doesn't mean that Russia is not going to launch airstrike against the Islamic State. Actually, they have a map that they divide Syria into different places, and they specify which areas they can launch and which area they can't.
So what happens, if this all falls apart? U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry in our previous report was talking about Plan B. What's next? Just back to the drawing board, back to the table to negotiate something?
Honestly, Suzanne, I don't think they have any articulate agenda. As I mentioned, there is no Plan B. I think they're just trying to figure out how they can, I think, project themselves as a country which is trying to resolve the Syrian conflict. Again, as I mentioned, the complexity of what highlights the complexity of the Syrian conflict is that there are more than thousands the players now fighting inside Syria. Some of them are governments and some of them are non-state actors. So I don't think there is really Plan B, but the only option which will be left for the United States is to increase its military operations in Syria, some kind of joint military operations with Europeans and some other Arab allies. But that, again, is going to really radicalize and militarize the conflict more in Syria.
Majid Rafizadeh, thank you so much joining us live from California.